We've done this, but we're going to do things a little bit differently today. Some of you are going to go away shaking your heads. Just don't shake your fist. We're going to add some things here. For several years, we've talked about the 7 last years of prophetic time. For most of my years in the study and pursuit of prophecy, Bible prophecy, I talked about the time of the end as 3.5 years. That was not a mistake, but it was not complete. There were some things that were not understood. And what we're going to do is add 1 year. That's no good. To this picture. So that I don't confuse you, everything here is indeterminate time. In other words, we have to go through it, we're going to pass through it. This is measured, this is counted in the book of Daniel and in the book of Revelation. It's not repeated once or twice. You know, if something is repeated 2 times or more, it's what? You can count on it. It's certain. Yes. These measured days in Daniel and Revelation are repeated and repeated and repeated. That's what's reckoned here. Right here. We're going to get a bit of history in the way here. This time, you and I are going to talk about today in its relation to you and me and this country and what's going on in the world. We're going to add a year because it's added in the book of Daniel. And I've seen it, but I haven't seen it. And once I begin to see what I think I see, I want to kind of bring some things to light with you. So let's see if the batteries work here. Yes. In the umbrellas right here, you have the second umbrella, the daily taken away. I want you to look at that. Just look at it. See where it's placed. We don't need to put that on the board yet. Daniel 12, verse 11. How many chapters in the book of Daniel? How many verses in chapter 12? 13. So we're looking at the end of what? We're looking at the end of the book of Daniel. We're looking at, all right? Now the way chapter 12 opens is Daniel is in vision and he sees a mighty angel lifted above earth and sea, and the angel is swearing by the throne of God. And you have to be a divine being to swear. Let's get that straight. So whoever this being is up there who is swearing has to be a divine being. And what is this angel's name? Michael. And an angel can be a prince. He can be a priest. He can be a son. He can be a king, a prince. He can be all of these things. So this being is hovering in Daniel's vision, and he addresses Daniel and he says, in verse 45, last verse of chapter 11, the man of sin is going to sit or stand where he ought not. Now I'm mixing New Testament and Old Testament verses right here. But this is the man of sin. And he is going to plant the tabernacles of his palace. Look it up, check it out. Temple. He's going to plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. And the next verse is verse 1 of chapter 12 in the book of Daniel. At that time shall who stand up? Michael stand up. The great prince that stands for the children of thy people. And there will be what? A time of what? Like nothing the world has ever seen. By the time you get to verse 4 in here of chapter 12, the angel commands Daniel to do something. Verse 4, what? Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book. What words? What book? Daniel. Your book. You're writing this down. Daniel was commanded to write things down. John in Revelation was commanded to write things down. We'll stir that pot a little later. Shut up the words and seal the book, even till the what? The time of the end. So there is something about Daniel's visions and the things that Daniel is seeing and hearing that belong to no other time but the time of the end. All right? Now verse 5 and verse 6 of chapter 12. Let's just follow this so that we get the sense of it. Verse 5 and verse 6, Daniel responds to the angel and says, how long until all of this is what? Come on, verse 6, how long till the end of all these things? Has anyone ever asked that question before? Are people still asking that question today? If the question hasn't been answered yet, the time of the what has not arrived yet. Thank you. So Daniel questions the angel and says, how long till all of this is over and done with? How long had Daniel been in Babylon by this time? Approaching how many years? Approaching 70 years. Daniel is not a young man. If you go through the book of Daniel, you will see that he has been shown time and time and time again things that pertain to the time of the end. The whole context of the book of Daniel is time of the end. From the metallic image in the dream given to Nebuchadnezzar, for God has shown the king what shall be in the latter days. I mean, the whole book belongs to the time of the end. Well, there are a lot of generations that come and go and have come and gone, and they have tried to work out these mysteries. Was that sinful? No. The fact that Peter, Paul, James, and John could make a mistake, just depends on how you read it, could make a mistake in interpreting the prophecies, the visions. Peter said, this is that which was spoken of by Joel the prophet. It shall come to pass in the last days. So did they believe that the world was ending in their day? Yes, they did. That's not a sin. It wasn't a sin for William Miller to believe that and interpret the way he did. Even though it was incorrect, it was not sinful. If anything, it showed the dedication of the person and the desire of the heart of the person. So let's get past, well, they were false prophets, they were false preachers, they were what? No, they weren't. They were just human beings. Just like Daniel in this vision, trying to sort out, when is all of this going to be done? Was it sinful for them to work it out so it would work out in their day?
No.
Now the Adventists made a profession out of this. I mean, they really worked it out. When Miller finally gave up at the personal level, the Adventists wouldn't give up. And so they worked out all of these prophecies that have to do with the time of the end of time, the end of the world. And they said, here it is, October 22 of 1844. And guess what? The world was still here on October 23. So tell me what that proves. Proves something. Tell me what it proves. This is the saying. They were right about the event, but mistaken about the... And if you have convinced yourself and a million others that all of these prophecies were fulfilled and it's all done in the past, that's not a sin, and I hope you won't be lost. I don't think you will. But we have to find some answers, folks. Shut it up, Daniel. So by the time we get to verse 7 of chapter 12, the angel says to Daniel, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and when these things happen, it'll be over and done with. We'll talk about those things by and by. In verse 8, Daniel said, you know, I hear what you're saying, but I still don't understand. In the next verse, the angel said, now this is southern, but Daniel 12. Okay, this is southern. Daniel, cool it. It's not for you to know. Go your way. What it really says is go to sleep. The wicked are going to do wickedly, and none of the wicked will understand. Verse 10, but the wise will. Now tell me what wise means. In the context of Daniel, in the context of prophecy, tell me what wise means. There were these guys who came from the east looking for the king. Where is he that is to be born king of the Jews? And we call them the word wise in this context, Old Testament and New Testament, the word wise here means they were observers of the times. They were watching for the signs of. Okay? Verse 10, wickedly, wise will understand. Now here comes verse 11. Here comes verse 11. Right here. I'll give you a bit of history. It's sad to some extent, no to a large extent. From the time, this is the angel addressing Daniel. From the time, you see the little word the in front of time? In the original language, the article there, the, means it is a specific punctiliar point in time. It is a specific time. If it's here or there or wherever it is, it will be very specific. So here we are. From the specific time, the daily shall be taken away, and the abomination that makes desolate is set up. There shall be 1,290 days. 1,290 days. So I want you to look on the little chart. Let's get our bearings. It's the second bar over, the daily taken away, and then 1,290 days is going to bring us to some terminus. Now that's just a big word, which means that's day 1290. Terminus means it's the end of those days, 1,290. Then we'll talk about the other by and by. In 1844, there was no Adventist denomination. As a matter of fact, 20 more years would go by. So from 1844, there was no structure as far as the Advent belief and message and people were concerned. It would take 20 years. 1864 is where the denomination was forged and formed. Now the hangers-oners, that's what I call them, from 1844, they began to understand that our numbers are increasing and we need structure. And so let's form a denomination. Let's form an organization. Now, there was a division between those hangers owners from 1844 to 1864. And what was the division about? There's always dividing. What was the problem? The problem was, if you're going to form an organization, you have to have a creed. And if by your measuring and counting there are 27 fundamental truths, God help us if there turn out to be 28. So half of these hangers owners said, we don't want a creed. Mistake. Let's not form an organization. We don't need an organization. It just takes time and the tail wags the dog. Were they correct? Yes. Yeah. Is that true of Baptists, Methodists, Presbyterians, and Muslims? Yeah. Absolutely. We don't want a creed. Oh, we're not going to have a creed. Didn't take long. We have a creed. We just call it 27 fundamentals. And I guess since I've been dealt with, there's a 28th. Is that right? My. There better never be a 29th. But these pioneers had it all worked out that something important happened in prophetic history and prophetic time, October 22 of 1844. Now, leading up to that day, that event, what did they believe was going to happen October 22 of 1844? Come on. That Christ was returning in fire to judge and separate. Okay? Now, when Jesus did not come, October 22, and that's a long story, when Jesus did not appear, those hangers-owners were left with only two choices. Chuck it, which most of them did. All right? Some 120,000 strong believers the day before, and hardly 1,000 by somebody's guessing the day after. They chucked it. But there are always those who said, we cannot be mistaken. God would not allow us to be misled. How many times have I heard that? God wouldn't allow us to be misled. Well, I don't know what the Garden of Eden was all about, but somebody allowed somebody to be misled. And so because you had this date, October 22 of 1844, and it was a consuming event in their understanding. What that means is something very important was to take place October 22 of 1844. And of course, if Jesus didn't come, they finally worked it out. This was the fifth interpretation, by the way, of Daniel 8:13. 8:14. They finally worked it out that this was the time that God had chosen to raise up the Advent people and the Advent movement. And the whole Adventist denomination organization hangs on the date of October 22, 1844. And all of these important times mentioned in Daniel and in Revelation, they had worked out, our fathers, our pioneers have worked out so that it all has happened in the past, and all we're waiting for is for Jesus to come. We're in the tarrying time. Now things went, I'm not going to say well, but they went okay for a while, about 20 years, and then about 20 more. So 1864, the denomination was formed, the movement, the organization. And we began calling men from the cornfields and the whatever and appointed them to be pastors among us and shepherds among us. And we decided that we needed to send some of them to school to be better equipped in things theological and biblical and so forth. Nothing wrong with that. It took about 20 more years You're from 1864 to 1888 would be how many more years? 24 more years? Yeah. Things were happening. And as men became better trained in the Word, better trained in the original languages, better informed and instructed, they began to raise questions. For example, from the time the daily is removed or taken away or defiled, 1,290 days. Now, what the fathers had done had worked out all of the points of these prophecies in history past. Great earthquake, on and on and on and on. Stars falling. They had it all worked out. And by the time the 1880s came along, we had some men who were bright, and they were better informed in the Scriptures. And they began to ask one another, what is the daily? Because all of these times are measured in their relationship to the daily. And we've got it all worked out. We know where the end of everything is, but we never sorted out where the beginning of everything was. Are you listening? And by the time you get to the 1880s, the temperature is rising. We had evangelists, we had pastors, we had teachers, we had instructors, we had people who were learning the biblical languages. And they said, wait just a minute. You cannot talk about the fulfillment if you don't know where to start counting. And if you don't know what the daily is that's being taken away, then you don't know where to start counting. So your whole case, your whole argument, your whole scenario is in jeopardy. So we come to Jones and Wagner, and we come to Ellen White, and we come to 1888 General Conference session. And boy, is the pot not being stirred, it's boiling. And things begin to happen. For example, Ellen White had taken a position with regards to Jones and Wagner and the theology that they were presenting to the brethren and to one another in the church. And Ellen White changed her mind. She changed her position. Now, what's wrong with that? Tell me what's wrong with that. If you're a prophet, you can't change your mind. And that's what they told her, Sister White. You can't change your mind. Wouldn't it be wonderful if everything you said and everything you believed and everything you wrote could never be changed? We call that what? Divinity. Not humanity. And we have been laboring in this movement for 150 plus years with a misunderstanding of what inspiration really means. Of course, a prophet can be mistaken. You'll want to read Ellen White on that point. Of course, a prophet can be mistaken. So the General Conference president got on a quick jet and flew to see Sister White. And he said, Sister White, I don't know what to say anymore. I don't know what to believe anymore. We have the General Conference session coming up here, and tempers are flaring, and Sister White, I don't know what to say anymore because you have changed your mind. You have changed your position. Now this got out of hand in the 1888 General Conference session, and in the few years following, That's where the subject of the daily reached the boiling point. So a delegation, not just the General Conference, a delegation from the General Conference goes to Sister White and says, Sister White, what light has God given you on the daily? Now, why would they pose such a question? Because suddenly it has become clear to people who are studying these things, addressing these issues, that we don't even know where to begin counting. We don't even know what it is we're counting from. So, Sister White, what light has God given you on the daily? Have you ever read what she said? She said, I don't know, brethren. God has not given me any light on this subject. Did they go away happy campers? What did they recognize? If they could get no answer, quotes from the prophet, then everything we're preaching as set in concrete truth is called into question. The point I'm trying to make with you is we're down here 100 and whatever years later, and we have never addressed and never answered the question, what is the daily? Now, Ellen White did offer something that I think we all should know about. She said, brethren, with regards to the daily, God has not given me any light on that point. But I will say this, the 12th chapter of Daniel contains a warning that we shall all need to understand before the time of the end. Man, where do you go with a statement like that? In other words, she is saying it's clear that there will come an understanding of the daily, of the time of the end. That there will come a clear understanding. She made other statements. For example, she said, these prophecies will interpret themselves by their plain, direct answers in the book of Revelation. Whoa, is that a stumbling block? Because you see, this expression daily appears 5 times in the book of Daniel. And it is so unclear in the book of Daniel as to what this daily actually means that the King James translators and the modern translators of the book of Daniel had to add a word to daily to, quotes, clarify it. Have you ever read these statements? As a matter of fact, 5 times the word daily appears in the book of Daniel. 5 times. And in each time, the word sacrifice is added, and it's always italicized. What does the italicization mean? It means it's supplied by the translators. It's not there. Well, why would God-fearing Christian men decide to add to Scripture? Because the focus is clear enough that this is important. This whole thing of the end time, and it starts here and it ends there. And if you don't know what it is or where it is to start counting, then who's going to know? What's the purpose of measuring the days if no one can sort it out? So 5 times the word daily appears in the book of Daniel. And I'm trying to understand it. I'm certainly not the first, and prayerfully I won't be the last. But I went through all of the Adventist history and the Sister White comments, and I went through all of that repeatedly. And I couldn't find an answer to the daily. Now, there were other keystrokes in this book of Daniel about the ram, the he-goat, and so forth. And so when war broke out between the United States, Great Britain, and Iraq, I said, this is exactly what's outlined in the Scriptures. Where is the daily? What is the daily? So I went digging again, and this statement from Ellen White came to my mind, and I looked it up and I read it in the context. She says the things that were shown to Daniel and sealed were afterward revealed to John on the Isle of Patmos and are open to our investigation. Now the word revelation actually means in the Greek an opening. All right? In other words, she just said to my mind and heart, the things shown to Daniel and sealed were afterward open to John on the Isle of Patmos, and they are open to our investigation. And when I could not find acceptable answers regarding the daily in the book of Daniel, I decided to go digging in Revelation. Does that make any sense to anyone else? I was driven to the book of Revelation. And I could not find the expression daily anywhere in the book. I could not find it. Well, I need to shorten the version here of all of this so we can do some more digging. But I was praying, Lord, when this happens, when the ram and the goat, and when this happens, it's said to be in connection with the time of the end. Please tell me, where is the daily? Where is the daily? What is the daily? Now, I'm just going to tell you what came to my mind with serious prayer, serious questioning, serious digging. And I'm reading in Revelation 10. Why am I reading in Revelation 10? Because Revelation 12, this is the picture. Get the picture. Mighty angel standing above earth and sea. His hands are lifted toward heaven. And he is swearing by the throne of God. That's Daniel 12. Tell me how Revelation chapter 10 opens. Mighty angel, swearing, hands lifted toward heaven. And what does the angel say? What is the angel doing? He is standing with a little book in his hand. Is it open or closed? It's open. Where did we meet this guy before? Where? He was telling Daniel, shut up the book. And here he is in Revelation 10. Same angel, same scene, same actors, and the little book in his hand is open. Now, does this come into focus in Revelation chapter 10? Yes, because Daniel is seeing all of this, and the angel says, in the days of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished. And so John is in the same condition Daniel was in 700 years before. Sees all of this, but I don't understand it. And an angel appears in chapter 10 of Revelation and says to John, just like an angel appears and says to Daniel, take the little book that is what? In the hand of the angel. Come on, it's open. Take it and eat it, and you'll just be a happy camper everywhere. What does it say? It'll be sweet, and then it will be bitter. The sweetness is the understanding that you have not been able to get your arms and heart around. And the bitterness is what? The reality of it. So John says, I took the little book and I ate it. It was sweet and it was bitter. And as soon as he has finished doing that, the angel says, now you must what? Come on, this is verse 11. Now you must prophesy again. Somebody has been prophesying, but hasn't had the straight of it. Now you must prophesy again. So this is how you're going to get this sorted out, John. Here is a measuring stick. And you're going to get up and you're going to measure what?
Outer court.
Measure the temple, measure the sanctuary, and them that worship therein. Those who are digging, looking, praying, living in the time of sanctuary time, measure it. But the court, which is without, in other words, the sanctuary is got a fence all the way around it, a curtain, but it's divided into an outer court and then to the sanctuary proper with a first apartment and a second apartment, and so forth. It's clear in the language that the part under consideration in this vision is the outer court or the most holy place. Come on, it's the outer court.
It's given to the Gentiles.
The part that's being measured.
Don't measure this part because it's given to the nations. Thank you, Gentiles it says, but it's actually the word nations. Given to the nations. And the holy city, that's which city? Jerusalem. Come on. They will trample underfoot for how long? 42 months. Now this happens to be the same period of time that is allotted or given to the two witnesses who are going to come, Moses and Elijah, and they're going to preach to every kindred, tongue, nation, and people. So whatever this outer court is about, it has to do with the same preaching that Moses and Elijah are going to preach when they get here. So I have a question for you. What happens in the outer court? Come on, in the sanctuary, tell me what happens in the outer court.
Sacrifices.
If the sinner comes and has a thank offering, comes to the outer court, brings the thank offering, is met by a priest. If the sinner comes and brings a sin offering, this takes place in the outer court. But there is something else that takes place in the outer court. Tell me what it is. And it's twice a day.
Morning and evening sacrifice.
Get it backwards. Evening and morning. Okay? And this is called the daily. I can't, it would be impossible for me to put words on when that broke onto my mind. So how do I do this? One, two, three, 4, 5, 6. Who did I leave out? Babylonians, Medes and Persians, the Greeks, the Romans. Who did I leave out? What? So we're dealing with Daniel, we're dealing with Revelation, and we're dealing with, so let's count. Moses, I have a mission for you. What is the mission, Lord? I'm 80. I just need to remind you, I'm 80 years old. I'm on retirement. I have a mission for you, Moses. I want you to go and tell my people and tell Pharaoh, let my people, come on, tell Pharaoh, let my people go where?
To the desert.
So here are people who've been in slavery and darkness for 400 years. They don't know nothing about nothing and nobody about nobody. So Moses has to start telling them, well, our fathers of old, that would be Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, etc. Our fathers of old our God, your God, our God, has sworn to our fathers that He would bring them to,
It's the promised land.
He promised, that's what He swore to. And God has sent me down here to tell you that the time has come. And He is going to bring you out with a strong arm. And He is going to bring you, us, into a land flowing with milk and honey. Hereafter referred to as the what land?
Promised.
The promise or the promised ED land. Tell me how far they got. As soon as they got out of town, what did they meet?
Red Sea.
Snakes, briars, scorpions. But it's okay because we're on our way to a land flowing with milk and honey. Tell me how many made it.
Two.
Is it possible in your thinking? Is it possible in anybody's thinking that this was a preview? That this was a prophetic preview of an actual time in the which God would bring His people to the promised land? I'm looking at you. It didn't happen. This was the first Adventist disappointment. Right here. Now, after 40 years of, wandering around, God brought them under Joshua across the Jordan and into the land. They were going about the business of settling in the land, dividing the land, etc., improving the land. And along comes a superpower. The superpower that ruled after Egypt declined. And that was Assyria. Now, the Assyrians were bad guys. No. They were bad guys. They were worse than the snakes back in the desert. And they came into this little piece of real estate. They came into this real estate because Assyria was here and Egypt was here, and they had to pass through this real estate to get to Egypt. What did they want in Egypt? They wanted to wipe out the Egyptian, and they wanted to become number one. Everybody wants to be number one. It's infectious. And they had to pass through this land on the way to Egypt. And they decided there are 12 tribes here, 12 divisions here, and they took 10 of them away. Those are called the 10 what tribes? Who took them away? Well, what problem did that pose for the Hebrew calling to settle and own the land forever? 10 of them are gone. And there were only 2 left. That was Judah and Benjamin. And the prophet was Isaiah, and the king was Hezekiah. Are you listening? And the king of Assyria sent his armies and his spokesman down and said, give it up, guys. Either come out with your hands up, or there won't be any of you left to put your hands up. They tried, Satan tried through these earthly powers, one by one by one by one by one. Satan has tried to destroy the plan, the promised plan. And who are they going to take away? Who are the two tribes? Judah. Who is yet to come in and through and out of the tribe of Judah? Come on. So this is nothing less than and nothing more than a second attempt to defeat the plan to bring Messiah. Moses was born. Pharaoh said, I don't like all those Hebrew boys. Drown them all. And we're down to one baby in one basket in the river. And through him, God is working out a divine plan. Man, it looks real bad for Judah and Benjamin. Looks real bad. It would have been real bad, except for something that happened at midnight on Passover in a Jubilee year. Does anybody have ears? Let them hear. So tell me what saved the few Hebrews, the hangers-oners. Tell me what saved them. I know God, but tell me what saved them. How did God save them? Hot rocks out of heaven at midnight. And the next morning, when they all woke up dead, 185,000 of them, it says. So it doesn't matter if it's the Egyptians trying to scotch the deal. It doesn't matter if it's the Assyrians. God carries on. So along comes big bad Nebuchadnezzar. Who's number one on the planet now? Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar comes down. Tell me what he's doing here. Babylon is over here. What is he doing over here? Same thing. He's on his way to Egypt because we're going to be number one. You ever heard the expression history repeats? We're going to be number one. And he gets here and his eye falls on the city of Jerusalem. And above the walls of the city is seen a portion of Solomon's what temple? Glorious temple. Gold, brass. You can see it over the wall, guys. Well, I know we're bound for Egypt, but we got to take a little rest area stop right here. And so what did Nebuchadnezzar do to the wall? And when he got through the wall, when he breached the wall and got in, what did he do to that glorious temple? Come on. He destroyed it. And what did he find in that temple? Gold, 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 gold. Boy, did we strike a lucky strike here. Now tell me who destroyed the temple. King, he's not yet king, by the way. It's while he's got his armies around Jerusalem that he gets word from home, your daddy's died, you better come back real quick, get coronated and come back. Tell me who robbed the temple. Tell me who destroyed the temple. Tell me who took all the gold and the things of the temple back to Babylon. And what did he take besides all the gold?
Prisoners.
Wave after wave after wave of prisoners. Would you ever suspect, would you ever even give it a casual thought that God would look with favor on Nebuchadnezzar? No? You know, this thing plays out all the way down through the Bible and all the way down through. You know, David said, Lord, why do the wicked prosper?
Really?
So God favors King Nebuchadnezzar. Tell me how God favors the king. He gives him dreams. He didn't give the dreams to the Hebrews. He didn't give them to, He gives this pagan, heathen, wicked king who has destroyed God's glorious temple, robbed it of all of the holy, sacred vessels, And God favors him with dreams. Now, when you get that one figured out, we'll all be in heaven. So, generations before our fathers, our Advent fathers, generations and generations before, the visions that were given to Daniel have stirred men's hearts and minds, and they have sought for an understanding for at least 2,200 years, all the way back to 150 to 200 years before Christ was born. People have been working it out, declaring it done. And so here we are. So this is just before I'm becoming an Advent Christian. All right? I'm a Christian. I'm a Baptist Christian. But an Advent evangelist showed up and said, I need somebody to help me with my tent. Could I hire you? That was a low-down trick. Nothing else worked, but it hired me to watch the tent. And of course, you must be present. So I listened to this Advent interpretation. And on the night of whatever it was in the series, there is this painted image of the metallic image of Daniel chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar's dream, head of gold, breast and arms of silver, belly and thighs of brass, legs of iron. You know the story. And of course, I was exposed to the Adventist interpretation of these things. That was not a sin. I was exposed to that interpretation. And I believed it. And I was baptized. And of course, I wanted to go out and tell my friends about these prophecies. And so I would get the picture of the great metallic image and, Babylon, Medo, Persia, Greece, Rome. And all of this has happened in the past, and we're down in the toenails of time. We've been in the toenails of time for a long time. And then one day, I don't know if it was pre-seminary or post-seminary. I can't remember. I don't recall exactly. But one day, I'm reading it again. So the king has a dream, and he can't remember the dream. God blotted it out after giving it to him. Enter Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. If you guys can't tell me what this is all about, if you can't get in touch with the gods and tell me what this is all about, off with your heads. Somebody did some serious praying. And so Daniel comes back to the king after a certain time and he says, "O king, could not the wise men, soothsayers, magicians, and astrologers tell the king the dream?" No. But there's a God in heaven that revealeth secrets and maketh known to the king what shall be in October of 1844. What? You see, human beings cannot get past. They just can't get past. As a pastor, as a literature evangelist, I would go and I'm the Bible story man. I put the books in the doctor's offices and, oh yeah, well, I'd like to show you my books. I don't need them. I already know what's in the Bible. I already know. So it's not just Adventists who already know. You understand? God has shown the king what shall be in the And 1844 is not the latter days, guys. I'm sorry. That's taking it and turning it to your own whatever. No, 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 no. Where does the metallic image belong?
The latter days.
Is there anything contextually in the dream itself that says this is all happening at one time? These are not
Periods of time.
one kingdom following another. They are all there at the same time. And the stone smites the image, turns it all to dust, and it blows away on the wind. So this was my first inkling that, hey, this is not about Babylon way back yonder. It's about Babylon at the end. And it's not about the country of Babylon. It's about something that Babylon represents. Well, we could go on. What I want to show you here is that every empire that has come along has attempted and has succeeded in capturing Jerusalem, polluting and defiling it. And we're down to the end. And who is it that prophetically is going to finally take away the daily, take control of the territory, take possession of, and defile the temple? Tell me who it's going to be.
That son of perdition.
Is it going to be the Pope of Rome? How about the man of sin? Tell me who the man of sin is. Who invented sin? I'm in Isaiah chapter 14. You're familiar with the verses. How are you fallen from heaven, Lucifer, son of the morning? How are you cut down to the ground, you who weaken the nations? For you said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like. The next verse says, yet you're going to be brought down to hell, the grave, and the sides of the pit. So tell me what's been going on for hundreds of years, a couple of thousand years or more here. Tell me what's been going on. Someone is attempting to take control of a piece of real estate. And every time it looks like the enemy is going to succeed in taking the piece of real estate, somebody always comes in and scotches the deal. God always has a champion somewhere. Now, when we get to the end, prophetically, Revelation 17, John is alive. He's there. He's on the Isle of Patmos. And this is what the angel says. This is one of the angels bearing the 7 plagues, 7 last plagues. John, come here. I want to show you something. There are 7 kings. 5 are fallen. 1, look. Don't miss it. 5 are fallen. 1 is, and 1 is yet to come. You listening? Now you just bypassed hundreds of volumes that have been written and thousands of pages that have been written and on and on and on. 5 are fallen. They're behind us. 1 is, because Rome is in control. But there's another one to come. So let's pick it up after the Romans. Who could that possibly be? Come on. I was born in 1942, month after Pearl Harbor. Who was trying to take over the world? Who was trying to take over the world? Come on, give me his name. Hitler. And of course, he loved the Jews. What did he not attempt to do? What did he begin doing that all these other guys tried to do but couldn't succeed? What was he doing? He was annihilating the Jews. One of the last things he said before he supposedly committed suicide, and that's questionable. One of the last things he said is, the day is coming, the leaders of these countries round about are going to love me because I got rid of the Jews for them. Now tell me what the big deal is. We got to get rid of the Jews. We got to drown them all. We got to take them away into obscurity. We got to make slaves out of them. What is the big deal to get rid of the Jews? What is it all about? What? Somebody wants to take control of a little piece of real estate. Now, we said it at the beginning. Tell me who that piece of real estate belongs to. Eden, the garden of? If we didn't have Bible, a lot of this would just be pure baloney, forgive me, and not the vegetarian kind. If we didn't have Bible. But we have Bible that speaks of a time when the holy city, New Jerusalem, is going to come down out of heaven. And of course, it's going to rest in Salt Lake City. What? You don't buy it. Where is the city going to be, and how long is it going to be there when it arrives? And so if a series of prophetic events outlined in this book begin to take place, the bad guy is going to know something. You'll find it in Revelation chapter 12. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for Satan has come down to you, having great, because he knows something. His days are numbered. If the world can ever figure out what kicks this off, what brings about the time of the end, this should be a picnic. And all I'm trying to say to you folk this morning is, the brethren were not fools. The pioneers were not idiots. They were just human beings, like all the human beings before them. And they wanted something to happen. What is it they wanted more than anything else? The kingdom of God to come. How long, oh Lord, how long? Now, I believe with everything in me, I believe with all my heart, mind, soul, spirit, that you and I are the last generation. I believe we are the last generation. How many of us are going to live through till the day Jesus comes, I can't say. I rather suspect not many of us. I rather suspect. So what is the aim? What is the whole plan of the wicked one? It is to take possession of that piece of real estate and spit in the face of God when Jesus comes and say, it's mine. And these people have all voted. And they have voted you out and me in. Does any of this make any sense to anybody?
It's all equal rights.
A few years ago, I was keeping an appointment in Ohio, in the Cleveland area. And some friends who had been in my seminars before were there, and they said, Brother Wheeling, this is going to be a different day today. I said, yeah. What will be different about it? Well, half or more of the people coming today, they're not Adventists. They don't know a thing about the Advent message or whatever. I said, well, that ought to be interesting. And it was. Every time we took a break, I was surrounded Not by Adventists, but by these inquirers. Inquiring minds want to know. And these people were full of questions. Never heard it on this wise before. And I needed some way, Lord, give me some way to explain to these folk in simple terms what's going on here. Because people have been interpreting Daniel for 2,000 years, and they've been interpreting Revelation for 2,000 years. I had a minister in one place, not an Adventist minister, fine man. He said to me, he said, I don't preach on that stuff. He says, it's too confusing. So he said, my members said, call this guy and let him talk about Revelation if you won't talk about it. So we're coming to sometime just before us, when there's going to be a stirring, a great stirring of interest in the prophecies of Daniel and the time is just before us. Well, we got to work out the daily so we can count. I can finish that. 1,290 days from the time the daily is taken away and the abomination that makes desolate is set up. Tell me what the abomination making desolate is all about. It has to do with the place of, come on, what is it? Well, if you'll read several translations or versions of the Bible, you'll find this, the abomination making desolate, the desecrating sacrilege, the unclean thing. And what is going to make it unclean? Thank you. Someone is going to get there, and someone is going to sit there, and someone is going to make a demonstration before the whole world that this is my real estate. There will be two great objectors to his taking possession or claim to take possession of the real estate. Who are the two great objectors? Moses and Elijah. And the showdown day will come. And if you have any understanding, or if you do not, please understand the day of the showdown between the man of sin and Moses and Elijah, when he puts them to death, he murders them. Where are they when all of this takes place? They're not in New York City? Where are they? In Jerusalem. The two witnesses are put to death. Lightning is made to come down and kill them, put them to death, murder them. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of that great city, where also our Lord was. I mean, you don't have to get too far out. Day 1290 is where the two witnesses are put to death. It is declared in the Word that they are allotted 1,260 days, 42 months, 3.5 years to preach. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and overcome them and kill them. And their dead bodies are going to lie in the street of the great city, Jerusalem. So if this is 1,290 and this is 1,260, how many days do we have in here? "30 days. Now, later I hope we can find enough time to get into the sanctuary timing in here. But on the little chart, didn't I put 20 and then 30? No, I didn't do that. Don't you do it. Don't do it. Don't.
We can do the math.
Not yet. What happens when the two witnesses arrive and they are given 1,260 days to preach? Come on. 3 messages go to every kindred, tongue, nation, and people. And those messages are empowered by the outpouring of the latter rain, Holy Spirit. This is Moses, this is Elijah, this is the outpouring of the latter rain. Now, if this is Moses and this is Elijah and this is the time of the end, when this time comes, when He, the Spirit of truth, is come, that's the Holy Spirit, that's the latter rain. When He, the Spirit of truth, is come, He will guide you into what kind of truth? All truth. And He is going to show you something. What is He going to show you? Things to come. The book of Daniel, the measured days, all of this is going to be opened up to whose understanding? Every kindred, tongue, nation, and people. Jesus said, the door cannot be shut and locked until everyone has had an opportunity to know what? To know something. Well, they have to know Jesus and all of those good things, but it's the same message that was delivered to Pharaoh. Let my people go. Where are they going? So what time has come? The time to leave for the... That's the message from Moses and Elijah. This is the real Exodus, guys. This is the real deal Exodus. And I am so thankful as I keep reading in the book, there will be no snakes, no scorpions, no cactus, no hunger, no heat, no thirst. It will be a picnic. What? I mean, if we can write our own version, let's write a good one. I mean, come on. So you are, I'm looking at you, and the expression on your faces is that it ain't going to be no picnic, Brother Wheeling. No, it's not going to be a picnic. As a matter of fact, Michael says to Daniel when he stands up, there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation. No, not to the same time. Tell me what's going to make this one so bad. See, chapter 12 of Revelation says there was war in... Now, don't ask me who used a laser gun and who used a BB gun and who... I don't know. I don't know how angels fight. I don't know. But what is depicted in the prophecies is that we are moving toward Armageddon. And we usually think of Armageddon in the terms of bullets and rockets and bombs and whatever. Armageddon is a Star Wars. It's a Star Wars. And all the evil forces are going to be assembled. And where is the showdown? Please tell me, where is this battle of Armageddon going to be fought? Over the contentious property, real estate. That's where it is. And earthlings are going to look at it as nation against nation and kindred against kindred and, you know. But to the wise who can see what is going on with more than human eyesight, this is going to be a showdown. And what is the showdown? I own this real estate and I am going to sit here and you are not going to take it from me. This is where God outsmarts the devil. Oh, he's always, no. He's not always outsmarting the devil. As soon as Jesus was baptized, he's out in the wilderness. And the devil shows him all the kingdoms of the world and says, these are mine. Just bow down and I'll share it with you. Do the kingdoms of this world still belong to somebody besides God? Yes. How did Jesus pray? Show us how to pray, Lord. Okay. Thy kingdom come. That means it's not here.
That's right.
Thy will be done. That means it's not. Jesus' prayer 2,000 years ago has still not been answered. We're waiting on something. Does the world know what it's waiting on? No. But there's coming a vote. So I was telling you about the group of fine folk over there in Ohio. Lord, give me some simple way of helping these folk understand. One fella came up, I mean, he had sincerity written all over him in his voice. And he said, you know, I read my Bible, and I have never been able to read these things and understand any of it. And I'm beginning to see something here. I said, praise the Lord. I said, let me make this as simple as I can. The book of Daniel contains visions that pertain to what is happening at the time of the end down here. Nation against nation, earthquakes, all these kinds of things. The book of Daniel is about what is going to be happening at the time of the end down here. The book of Revelation is about what is happening up there. At the same time, these things are happening down here. I don't know how to make it any more simple and direct than that. This is why the time periods of Daniel and Revelation agree with one another. So Jesus said to Daniel when he kept pushing and I still don't understand. Cool it, Daniel. It's not meant for you. Go to sleep and you will receive your reward at the end of the, that's 1335. So look at it with me and let's just talk, because we're going to dig into this. This is just about the last 3.5 years. We've got several years before to get to that. And when we start talking about what is just in front of us, whoa. I have to make sure you leave all your hatchets, all your swords, and all your guns outside when you come back. All cabbages and tomatoes outside. But I promise you, you're going to see things you have not seen. Okay? And in the book of Daniel. So look at this with me. There are 3 umbrellas. The blessed day is day 1335. I call it the blessed day because the angel says to Daniel, blessed is he that waits and comes or still lives through until the last day. Blessed is the one who waits and comes to day 1335. And if you'll follow that umbrella over, you'll see the end of the days. That's what was Daniel promised. You will stand in your lot at the end of the days. What happens when Jesus shows up in the clouds of heaven? He shouts, and who wakes up? The dead in Christ. Yes. So after Christ comes, that's a sore point because nobody knows. Well, I don't know where to start counting yet. I just know there's a measured time. And have any of you folk ever gone through, no man knows the hour and the day? You ever gone through the Greek on all of that? No, it does not say never will know. It has to do with the question the disciples asked Jesus in Acts 1:6. Is this the time? No. Nobody knows. Not even the angels. Not even the Son of Man. Does that mean when the time of the end comes, nobody knows? Listen, John 16:13. Howbeit when he, the Spirit of truth, who's talking? Jesus. This is a red letter. When he, the Spirit of truth, is come, he will guide you into all truth. And what kind of all truth? He will show you what? Things to come. Things that are locked up until the time of the end are locked up. But when the time of the end comes, they will be unlocked. It's promised. Please don't lose this, okay? Because we're going to refer to it several times in the afternoon. Let's get a couple more slides here. From the punctiliar time, the daily shall be taken away, and the abomination that pollutes, desecrates, makes unclean, there'll be 1,290 days. So we're going to get this down to the basic, the daily taken away, the abomination making desolate. By the way, when the disciples pressed Jesus there on the Mount of Olives and said, how can we know when you're coming back? This is Jesus, and he is quoting verbatim from the book of Daniel. When ye therefore shall see the abomination making desolate, spoken of by whoso readeth, let him what? Go away mystified. Doesn't say that at all. Next, blessed is he that waits and comes to the 1,330 days. So let's add another umbrella here. Wait on it, Daniel, because you're going to stand up at the end of the days. So here we are. Umbrella number 1, 1,290 days, pardon me. 1,335 days. And here are the verses. Daniel 12, verses 12 and 13. Now I'm going to give power or authority. The power there is the power of the Holy Spirit. It's the impetus of the Spirit. I'm going to give power to my 2 witnesses, and they're going to prophesy for 1,260 days. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit. Tell me where the beast ascends out of the bottomless pit. Revelation chapter 9. Trumpet number
5. Time of the evening sacrifice.
And what is his title? This beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit. Apollyon means what? Destroyer. So we have 3 comfortable but uncomfortable umbrellas here to deal with. I chose the first one, the daily, because you can't get your feet down and your mind around any of this until you can sort out the daily. And the reason I chose chapter 11 of Revelation is, don't measure this. This is given to the nations, the Gentiles. And the holy city they're going to tread underfoot. 42 months. 1,260 days. And those are the 1,260 days that are allotted to the 2 great witnesses, prophets from heaven. So we've added the 42 and 3.5. I really should lock the doors at noon so you can't leave. Because if you do, you're going to miss what follows. During the night season, I was pleading with some families to avail themselves of God's appointed means. Whatever God's appointed means. We'll talk about that when we come back. And get away from the cities. Some were loitering, making no determined effort. The angels of mercy hurried Lot and his wife and daughters by taking hold of them, their hands. Had Lot hastened as the Lord desired him to, his wife would not have. Lot had too much of a lingering spirit. Those who obey this warning will find a refuge. A refuge. What does that mean? We'll talk about it. They will find a refuge. Listen to this. Let every man, men, M-A-N, let every man be wide awake for himself and try to save his family. It didn't say be wide awake and save his family. It said try to save his family. What is coming is going to take most in a snare. In another place she says, I saw that many will delay and they will try to leave and will not be able to leave. This is Second Selected Messages 354. You're going to have these quotes. Let every man be wide awake for himself and try to save his family. God will reveal from point to point what to do next. And we're going to talk about some of these things, and I guarantee you, in ways that you have never heard before. And the reason you've never heard before is because I'm too chicken to say it. But it's too evident now when you see this kind of thing going on, and this is only 90 days ago, it's too evident now that the crisis is right upon us. And God is going to do something to stretch the days just a bit. Just a bit. We'll talk about it. If you've never really solved in your own mind a definition for grace, a simple definition for grace is God is stretching the time. In other words, Adam and Eve should have been in the garden. If you obey, you live. If you disobey, you what? And God, through grace and His promise to give His own Son to pay the bill, has stretched the time. For what purpose? We'll talk about it. Father in heaven, we want to pause and share a meal. We thank you for your goodness, for this nice building that has been made available here to us today. We just thank you for the food we're about to share, for the blessings of this day and days yet to come. In Jesus' name, amen.